In today's video, I want to talk to you about whether self-fulfilling prophecies are killing your practice. And by that, you might wonder, well, what do you mean by self-fulfilling prophecies? If you've ever heard the quote from Henry Ford that says, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. And this is one little short statement. And I'm sure after everything Henry Ford built and everything he was able to accomplish, it was something that came to mind after working with so many maybe engineers or people on the factory line or suppliers, whoever. But Henry Ford probably came to that conclusion after working with so many people who had a different mindset. And when you really think about the mindset of self-fulfilling prophecies, you might wonder, well, what would it sound like in my practice? What would it sound like on a day-to-day basis? So I have 4 different statements that are ones that you've probably said or you hear in your practice, and it might be the big red flag that we need to overcome some self-fulfilling prophecies. And this is why I made this video, is because I have seen over time, over the last 23 years, how many people kill their own production, they kill their own schedules, they kill their own productivity because of these self-fulfilling prophecies. So as an example, one of them is when I see things or hear things from clients or their teams where they say, well, Margaret can't. And they have already shut Margaret down. They've already dismissed her. They've basically not given Margaret a chance to succeed. They don't allow Margaret an opportunity to even show and demonstrate that she's capable. So imagine Margaret's an assistant in your practice. Here's an example I've seen hundreds of times over and over. And that is, Margaret might be a newer assistant. She might be new to your practice, but years of experience. And you may have an assistant who's been there for 20 years. Fantastic. But when we have one assistant, let's just say Cindy is your lead assistant. If Cindy is one that's constantly taking the responsibilities, jumping in, taking all the tough cases, and then we turn around and say, Margaret is not capable, she can't do that. Well, we've never really given Margaret the opportunity to demonstrate. We've never given her an opportunity to learn, because you have to get in and do it to even determine where your gaps are or what you do and don't know. So there's one example of when we label people as not being able to do things. So another version of it might be patients won't come in this time of year. So for example, I've worked with clients where their summers are crazy busy, and then sometime between basically when kids go back to school, their production plummets, their schedule gets really sparse, looks like Swiss cheese, and they say, we can't get patients in this time of year. And there's a client I worked with for years, and there was a very influential person in the practice who would constantly say, we can't get people to come in this time of year. And because of that, everyone in this practice, multi-doctor, multi-location practice, everyone in this practice was conditioned to think, well, no one wants to come in this time of year. And if that's the mindset we've created with the entire team, guess what? That's the exact result you're going to get. And yes, I know when you have your kids go back to school, maybe we have to shift gears and think of our schedule differently. Maybe we need to think about what we put in our schedule in those off-season or non-peak seasons, if you will. It might just be that it's easier for you. And then think about it this way. If you schedule differently even during the peak season, would it push more people out to the non-peak season? Maybe, it's very possible. But in terms of thinking differently, create a different mindset that we're going to have a schedule. And yes, there may still be a dip, but you don't want it to be a dip that is 20%, 30%, 50% less than your peak season. That's not healthy. So we need to do things to ensure that we don't see that. It starts with the mindset that we're not going to allow a schedule to drop off like that in what historically has been a non-peak season. So another one is there's no good people to hire. And this is one that I've heard, especially in the last couple of years. And I heard it yesterday, I heard it last week, and that is that there's just no good people out there to hire. And when you keep saying that, that's how you enter interviews. That's how you write ads. That's how you network to find people. And it's funny, I have a handful of clients right now. They've not had one problem finding a staff member when they've had a change in staff. There's one that I'm thinking of right now that they had people where a spouse was transferred to another location. That hygienist left. Everyone says, oh, there's no hygienists out there. This hygiene position has changed probably 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. And not once have they gone without a hygienist. And it's funny, I've never heard this client say there's no good people out there. I know of another client that every time they get an opening, and usually it's because, good reason, someone got transferred, someone got pregnant, decided not to come back. Could be any number of reasons, but they've never had a problem finding someone because they enter the opportunity or the problem with this mindset that we're going to find somebody. It's just a matter of who. I mean, you think about it, if you go to any given city, if you have 300,000 people, are you telling me there's not one good person in 300,000 people? That doesn't seem logical. So when we enter it, we have to change that mindset that I'm going to find the one. I'm finding that one person. When you get married, you only want to find one person. You're not looking to find 300,000 people, just one. So then the last one that I've got here is people around here just won't. And it was funny, I was driving through an area of Maryland a couple weeks ago, and I was visiting with a client, and it was so funny how I had this recollection of a client that I had on the Eastern Shore. And this client, literally my first phone call, I'm going through his numbers, I'm going through all these different things, and this was a country guy, country doctor, and he said, now you listen to me, boy. And I'm like, okay, what's coming next? He said, you listen to me, boy. He said, these people around here are not going for full arch cases. These people around here are not doing comprehensive treatment. These people around here don't have money. And because he had such conviction about this, that's what the team thought. The team followed his lead. The team said, if that's what the doctor says, that's what I'm supposed to believe. And they were conditioned to that. I've seen the same kind of thing happen with managers or staff members that have been in a practice for a really long time. The more they say something, the more it gets ingrained in the entire team. So sometimes we just have to check our language and give it a try. We have to think, is it possible that the person who's coming in, who might be driving an $80,000 pickup truck, even though we might be out in the country, even though they're driving an $80,000 pickup truck and they live in the country, is it possible they would want quality of care? Is it possible that they want to be seen on time? Is it possible they want to see the best possible practitioner in town? It's possible. So when we think about how we think of things, and if we start on the negative side of things, if we think about what's not going to happen, that's exactly what you're going to attract. So how do we combat that? How do we get around it? So when you think about the examples that I gave you, one way to get around it is we have to give a little trust every now and then. We have to trust in someone else that, okay, even if they mess up, even if they don't do the best job, even if, for example, with the assistants I used a minute ago, we have to trust that Margaret is going to improve her skill set in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, because at some point we want her to be capable of also being a lead assistant. That would be fantastic, because we can't shut the practice down just because one person goes on vacation. So when we then think about another way to do it is, and this would tie right into this situation with Margaret, what if you were to outline outcomes? What if you were to create expectations for what your outcomes are? So whatever it is, whatever trust issues you have, whatever pitfalls you foresee, maybe we can take this and then turn it into whatever those fears are that you may have, outline the 2, 3, 4 things and what they are, give those to Margaret and turn them into actionable items, turn them into expectations of what you want to see. And then it would be pretty awesome if Margaret proves you wrong. Wouldn't that be awesome? That's a time when it'd be fantastic for someone to prove you wrong and show you maybe your fears were all for naught. So another one is be your own disruptor. So when you already have these ideas that things are not going to work out, it's going to turn out badly, our schedule is going to run behind, if we change this, do that, something bad's going to happen. Then create the outcome that you want, and then create the plan of how we get around that. And it might be, maybe we need to up our marketing efforts. Maybe we need to promote a certain service mix more. Maybe we need someone who has no problem whatsoever picking up the phone and knows no better. And it's so funny how often I've seen a new team member join a practice, and I've seen it. There's one example when I worked with one in Tennessee, office manager, been there for 15 years. And they hired a 22-year-old, I think, that came in. This is her first real job. She'd worked some other jobs, but first real job. And magically, their schedule stayed full, and no one could figure out why. And it's because the office manager had been conditioned to some of the things that I've already said. Patients won't go for this. Patients won't come in this time of year. Patients won't. So that's how she started. The new girl, let's just say her name was April. April didn't know any better. April had no idea this is how patients act around here. So she just kept picking up the phone, and she kept filling the schedule. And for some odd reason, their schedule was full when April was the one who was working the phones. So another one might be, and this might sound self-serving, but it's the truth, and that is hire a coach or a mentor. Hire someone who's going to help you get out of your own box. That's one of the things I help clients with all the time, is we may see things through our own lens. We may have conditioned ourselves. Our team may be conditioned, and sometimes you need, and just hiring a coach could be a disruptor in itself, because we've said something has to change. Something has to be different than the way we've been doing it. It just can't stay this way. So we need somebody to come in, help us shake it up, find a way, identify what the real problems are, give us some actionable items, and then we'll go make those things happen. And in doing that, we will be our own disruptor, and we will have a full schedule year round. We will have patients that accept treatment that previously we said we didn't think they'd accept that. And then the last, and it's something that you have to do, and it really disrupts everything that I've talked about here, and that is you have to focus on the positive. Yeah, we can all find someone who can be negative. I can go out and put an ad for somebody in your office, and I can find 10 negative people like that. I don't need that. You don't need that. You need positivity. So each day when you get to work, maybe when you start your morning meeting, what are 2 to 3 positive things that happened yesterday? Trending wise, what are a couple things that happened in the practice that's worked out really well? Another example that I just had recently, I had a client who recently, their accounts receivable, we've been putting a really heavy focus on cleaning it up. And in doing that, we were comparing that against production, or we were comparing the number week to week. What does the total AR look like? And lo and behold, the AR went up. And they've put a lot of effort into cleaning it up. And suddenly the AR went up. And of course, there was a lot of discussion about why it went up, and maybe we didn't do our job. And we asked a question: did the production go up? So in the midst of everything else, of us focusing on the AR, the production was up a pretty good number. And it just so happens that the accounts receivable went up by about the same number. And it was because they were successful in one area, which then led to the AR going up. So when you focus on the positive, you will get more positive. If you focus on the negativity, or if you focus on poor outcomes, guess what? That's what you're going to get. When you walk into a room and you have a patient that has a tooth that needs to be extracted, they have cavities, they have anything else, you know what the problem is, you know what the solution is. And when you're done, I'm pretty sure you're happy with your work. We need you to get yourself to a point to where you're happy with what's going on inside the office. So when you're working on the business, not in it, but when you're working on the business, you're happy with the results there too. So stay positive. So you want to eliminate these self-fulfilling prophecies, or the negative self-fulfilling prophecies, maybe we just turn those into positive self-fulfilling prophecies and start telling yourself, these are the good things that are going to happen with our practice. So my name is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting. If there's anything I can do to help you, work with you on, or even if there's certain content that you'd love for me to cover in a future video, let me know. Drop it in the comments below. You can instant message us as well. Stay tuned. We have more videos that are coming out soon.